Okay guys, I'm going to teach you how to do, we're going to do royal icing, consistency, and flooding real quick. Nothing exciting, I have a bunch of circle cookies to do. So I'm going to scoop out my royal icing. This is the thickness of mine when it comes out of the mixer. It doesn't fall off the spatula unless I really shake it. I like it thick. I use a little less than 3/4 cup of water and flavoring. Okay, I'm gonna add white food coloring. It is not a must. I just like to do it. Makes it a little brighter. Don't add much. And now I'm gonna take my spray bottle and start adding water a little bit at a time. So we're gonna start with, I need to make 2 consistencies for flooding cookies, an outline consistency, and then obviously my flood consistency. Now, as far as getting your icing to the consistency that you're comfortable with when outlining cookies, you don't want it to be too thick, because if it's too thick, it's gonna keep breaking. Your piping line will keep breaking and you'll have to keep piping over it, but you also don't want it too thin that when you're trying to get straight lines, they are becoming more squiggly than straight. So I usually say about the consistency of toothpaste, or even as soft as soft serve ice cream. And a good way of telling that would be how when you get a soft serve ice cream cone, you see I'm pulling up on my spatula, and I don't know if you can see this, but my peak is turning over like a tidal wave. It's weighted and it's falling over. This is still, my peak's still just a little bit too stiff. This would be okay, but I still think I might have a little issue with breakage. So I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more water and see where we're at. You don't want too much resistance when you're cutting through the icing. So this is a good consistency, I'd say. It's about right where I want it. I'm gonna add just a little bit more water, because there's nothing worse than it being too thick and your lines breaking, because it's gonna take you twice the amount of time to get your cookies decorated. You know, a lot of people use just one consistency when outlining and flooding, and I actually used to do that, but I would also run into every couple cookies my flood would be spilling over my edges. So I ended up going to multiple consistencies. So yeah, I would say this is good. I'm gonna try to show you guys more about what it looks like. You don't want your peak to be too high, just enough. Make a couple little tidal waves there. Yeah, see how high my peaks are standing up just a little high for me. All right, I would say this is good. I'm gonna go ahead and bag this. You know what? I am a fool. Yes, that's good. And now I actually just realized this is icing I made last night before I went to bed, and I put it in the freezer, and I would say it's still good. I still have a lot of control over it. It hasn't, in time your royal icing is going to start to separate. the consistency will get looser. So this consistency is still good, so I'm actually not going to bag that. I'm going to go ahead and turn this into flood icing. And I'm going to add my leftover flood icing from yesterday. No point in wasting it. So you can always do that. If you have leftover white icing, you need to make more, just mix it in. It will mix till combined. Okay, now I need to add a lot more water because we're going to flood consistency. Okay, sorry. I had to get my daughter a snack. Okay, I'm going to need a lot more water and do 2 squirts. Always add the smallest amount of water as you can at a time until you get used to making your icing, because it's easier to add more than it is to take away. Once you add too much water, and you know, never overcompensate by never go back and thicken with powdered sugar, because then you're altering your recipe, you know. So just add, you know, go back to your thicker pre-made icing and add a little bit of that. Okay, so this is good. It's nice and runny. About the consistency of shampoo is a good, usually a safe zone. You know, you also want to consider the size of the cookie you're flooding. If it's over 3 inches, the thinner the better. But you also don't want it so thin that your coverage isn't, how do I want to say this, where it's almost translucent. So I'm doing 3-inch little over 2.5-inch circles. I just don't want my icing to dry before I have to scribe my edges, because that's how you get little dry bits and you don't get that smooth finish. So I'm gonna add another squirt. This would be good for anybody else, honestly. Like if you're decorating just a 1 or 2-inch cookie, you really don't need to go super thin. See how quickly it's settling into the rest of the icing, and I can see I'm starting to get air bubbles, and when I see air bubbles forming, I know I'm gonna stop, because I've already incorporated too much air into my icing while mixing, and the more water that's in your icing, the more air bubbles you're gonna have. So I'm comfortable with that right there. We'll go ahead and bag that. So we can start decorating our cookies. Another thing you can do, if you guys don't have a circle cookie cutter, even though that's pretty basic, or a biscuit cutter that you could use, you can always print, you know, Google 3-inch, 2-inch circle clip art, and then print it out on cardstock paper and trace your dough and cut your own cookies by hand. You can get a pen blade at any craft store, even Walmart carries them. And show you that in a different video. You don't always have to buy cookie cutters, especially if it's, like, I have a lot of cookie cutters because I have a cookie business, but if it's just, you know, a shape you think you're gonna do once or twice and you don't need to have a cutter for it, then honestly, hand cutting is probably the way to go for you. And you can, like I said, find any clip art imaginable and size it to what you want and print it and hand cut. So my icing is now ready. We're gonna go ahead and get started here. Slide my cookie swivel over. Make sure you guys like have a good angle here. All right. Oh, and I'll show you When trimming your tipless icing bags, if you guys don't already know this, the seam should be up and facing you. You want to flatten the tip as much as you can, get it nice and flat. Depending on the brand of bag you have, you may have a lot of extra, like a flap of extra plastic at your seam. That differentiates the quality of the bag, in my opinion. Like if I buy a brand that I've never purchased before and I have overhang, I don't know what I normally call that. I'm having a brain fart here, but if there's like extra here on the seam, then I won't purchase them again. You want them to be seamless, essentially, because if there's even a little bit of overhang, it's gonna affect how your icing lands on your cookie. So this brand has, like, enough that I can feel it, and so I never use these bags for anything more than flooding. So I'm just gonna trim like 1.5 millimeters off the top here, just straight across. And I would recommend less is more always. You can always go back and trim more off. You can't put it back, and you don't want to have to waste another bag and rebag. Now, when I start, the more experience you get, the more comfortable you're going to be trimming more off the end of your bag. It's all about control. So let's go ahead and get started here. I just like to damp a paper towel to kind of put my bags in so they don't start to crust on me. So and then I like to have another one. I like using the Viva paper towels. I noticed with other paper towels, especially cheap ones, you have like all these extra like fibers. Like I'll wipe my scribe and then I look, sorry, I have food coloring on my hands. And it's like I'll have like a little, almost like a hair, like a, I don't know, from the paper towels. These Vivas, I've never had that issue with. They're expensive, but I only use them for my cookies, so they're awesome. I had purchased these like reusable paper towels, like towel rags or whatever from Walmart, and I was so excited because I wanted something, that I could wash and reuse that would resemble a paper towel, and they ended up having so many like plies on them. I think that's what you call it, and it didn't work. Like I would wipe and have like little red pieces of thread almost on my, Anyhow, back to it. Let's go ahead and get started here. You want to hold your bag with your seam facing you always, along the side here, and then touch down on your cookie so your icing sticks. And then you're gonna keep your bag elevated. You don't want your bag touching your cookie. Okay? The higher you can pull, you want to drag and drop your icing, the more control you're gonna have. Now I have a cookie swivel. If you don't have a cookie swivel and you don't have a fabric tablecloth on your table like I do, if it's vinyl or you're just on the table, you can put a piece of parchment paper down and put your cookie on it and just turn the piece of parchment paper, and it's going to pretty much do the exact same thing as a cookie swivel. Or you can turn your cookie. I got the cookie swivel because I was constantly needing to turn my cookie, and I don't know how many times my fingers ended up messing up my icing, and it just became a must for me. So now I take my flood icing and I do the same thing. I try to get pretty much on top of my my piping line to try to conceal it as much as possible. I feel like it's less work, and sometimes I end up going over like that. The further you pull your bag away from the cookie, the less control you're going to have over where the icing falls. So try to always keep it, under an inch. So now that I'm back around, I'm going to go ahead and just start flooding the whole way around the cookie. Light and moderate pressure. You want to maintain the same amount of pressure the whole way around. You want it to distribute evenly. And you can always take, as you see, I'm taking my bag and actually using it to push my icing over my flood line. But you don't want to break your flood line. So don't push it into it. You're just using the bag to make the icing dance and move, and let the icing do the work for you. So I'm pushing the icing over to my my piping line. I'm not actually dragging my bag into my line. I hope you guys can see that. All right, now let's get jiggy with it. And I'm going fast. You guys, you know, take your time. It'll come, like, speed will come in time. And then I tap it, I jiggle it, let the icing settle, and usually I can see now where I have some dips, maybe where you see any dark spots, then you know you need a little bit of icing there, or else you're gonna end up with craters. So any shadows you see is where you want to add a little bit of icing. Okay, so that looks good to me. Usually where you start and stop is where you'll have to pull the icing over. Don't mind my nails, guys. You can see I was trying on nail polish whenever I was at the drugstore yesterday. Trying to find a Christmas color, and I'm not finding the color I want. Okay, hold on, sorry. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a tray from my dehydrator and set it here to put my cookies on, and then once I fill it up, I'll stick it in there. Oh, and of course, that's why I hate picking up my cookies. I'll use my scribe to move them. That time I messed it up. Okay. And don't mind these shapes. My boyfriend, I have a really large order right now, and he was trying to help, so I let him actually cut and bake cookies for me the other day. I got my dough ready for him, and you know, it was very nice of him to help me, and I thought he did a decent job, but then after you know, they set and settled and were in my air. I pulled them out today, and a lot of them don't look like circles, you know, and it was his first time. He'll learn. I'm not going to hold it against him. I'm just going to use what I can and get rid of what I can't. So again, I touch down, and now I'm pulling, dragging, and dropping my icing as I go. If I didn't have 200 cookies to do, I would not be using this one, but I'm going to try to salvage it because it's not, you know what, it's not flat, and the other side's worse. Sometimes if the top of your cookie has, like, as you can see, there's like a crack on the side that I'm going to have to fill here so my icing doesn't run out. If the top has like butter bubbles, or just, you can always flip that cookie over and ice the bottom. It doesn't have to be the side that was side up on the baking sheet. Once there's icing on it, nobody's going to be able to tell anyways. So now I'm going to go ahead and touch down, drag it the whole way around. And if you're not comfortable dragging your flood icing back over your piping line, you don't have to. You can, on the next cookie I'll show you where I'll just go ahead and go right into, you know, a heavy flood around the border of the cookie. It's whatever you're comfortable with. You guys are going to find your own rhythm and your own way in time. So, and I'm just working my icing into my piping line. And if you're going along and there's already little like shallow shadows or dips in your icing, as you can see, I'm filling those in as I go. Okay. Little jiggle, little shake. I can see that over here, I'm actually pulling my icing over my line here because I have like a straight line. It's not very rounded, so I'm gonna try my best to tweak this cookie the best I can to make it look more like a circle. So my guess is this happened. This is the side he stuck the spatula on to transfer it to the baking sheet. And if you guys are having that issue too, as your dough gets softer as you're making your shapes and rolling your dough and all of that, I use a metal bench scraper, which is what they use for bread doughs, and it's usually what they use for dough. I used to use it in a pizza shop whenever I was a kid. I made pizzas for a long time in a lot of different pizza shops, and bench scrapers, it has a handle, and it's metal or aluminum, and it's a straight blade. It's similar to like, the ones they use for cakes, but it's metal, it has a handle, and that's what I use to pick up my cookie. Anything that's flat is going to be better. Anything you can get closer to the countertop. Spatulas, I've never had any luck with spatulas. It always pushes the sides of my cookie in, so. Okay. We're just going to do the same thing here. I'm going to turn some music on and just start flooding some cookies, and you guys can, any questions you have, leave them in the comments below, and I will absolutely answer any questions you have. Like, here's another way you can do it. See how I have my icing almost in front of my bag, and I'm literally pushing it with my hand. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to become. Okay. So this time, like I said, I'm just going to go right into flooding. I'm just piping as close to my line as possible. Make sure you're keeping your bag tip off of your cookie, or else you're gonna break your line, your outline, and your flat icing is going to spill over the edges. So you never want to dig your tip of your bag into your cookie ever, for any reason. My bag never touches my cookie, not even when I'm doing my outline. I just drop it down till the icing sticks, and then I start to drag and drop the whole way around. Honestly, the drag and drop routine is going to be crucial for you guys. That's something that took me, I did cookies for quite some time before I learned how to do that. And it does make a big difference as far as how your lines are going to come out. I'm going to do one more. I don't want this video to be too long. Figure you guys will get the point. And right there, my line's too straight for me, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up where I left off. You want to get it as close to the edges of the cookie as possible, so just gonna get that icing to touch. It broke. Okay, and now 3 different times I had to start and stop. So you can gently take your scribe and just blend those lines in. Okay. And if you don't have a cookie scribe or a cookie swivel, just grab it like this and I got my cookie turntable off Etsy. They sell them at Hobby Lobby, Amazon. I mean, who knows where else. They may even have them at Walmart. I don't know. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below, and I will make sure that I take the time to answer them. Thank you so much. And happy baking. I'm going to put these in my dehydrator.